going from 20+% body fat to ripped, there were many lessons I wish someone warned me about, which would have saved me years of struggling and doubting myself. This not only changed my physique, but also how I trained, ate, and lived. As a personal trainer, I've helped hundreds of busy men go from overweight to lean, so I know the journey isn't just physical. There are big shifts that happen in your body, in your mindset, and even in your relationships. And it doesn't matter if you're at 20, 25, or 30% body fat right now, because I'll tell you everything I learned the hard way so that you can get to 15% body fat or below the smart and sustainable way. The first thing is at 11% body fat, I looked skinny and small in normal clothes. My shirts fit looser, my jeans slid on easily. But the best part was, with my shirt off, I looked bigger, more muscular, more sculpted with V taper, even though I lost a bunch of weight. Because with a tighter waist and less fat around the midsection, the definition finally reveals itself. Shoulders and arms pop, abs were clearly visible, and it feels good training in the gym where you can actually see your muscles flexing and contracting without being hidden by that fat. That's the power of a high muscle to fat ratio. Anything above a 5 or a 6 is going to have you in the top percentage of physiques. And the best way to check that is by getting a DEXA scan. And that way you can measure your lean mass against your total fat mass to get the ratio. For example, 60 kilos of lean mass and 12 kilos of fat mass is about a 5.01 ratio. If you've seen the scale go down and your clothes feel looser, good. That's fat disappearing and the muscle is finally becoming visible if you're building it. However, even when you feel you're looking better and better, something weird will happen. Once I got to 15% body fat, which really any guy can do with the right system, people started saying things like, "You look too thin. Are you malnourished or unwell? You need to bulk up, or you'll get too skinny. You look better with more fat on you." All the shit you don't want to hear right when you're feeling and looking better and stronger than ever. The fact is, when you change, it makes others uncomfortable. They're going to compare, they're going to judge themselves, and instead of cheering you on, it's more comfortable to try and pull you down. Just eat the pizza. One drink won't kill you. Being that lean is bad for your body. You need all this healthy fat. And look, it's not because they're bad people. They might love you. It's just that the progress exposes their lack of effort. So here's what I did to navigate this. I didn't explain myself, justify, or defend my choices. I embraced being stubborn, and I loved it because I stuck to my path and I finally felt in control of myself and my habits. I let the results speak for themselves, because what comes next is going to be even harder to manage if you're not mentally prepared for what I'm about to share. So as I got leaner, the scale started messing with my head. Sometimes I'd go weeks and I'd only drop half a kilo or 1 pound. And I'd catch myself doubting everything, but that was stupid because my abs were more visible, my muscle definition was clearly improving, and that's when I realized that under 15% body fat is really when my body kicks into this recomp mode. That's when you can lose fat slowly while gradually increasing muscle mass. And at this point, the scale isn't going to move as much, it just fluctuates, but your body shape is changing more. And that's when I stopped obsessing over the scale every single day, because it can fluctuate 2 to 4 pounds in one day. Most of it is just food, water, sodium, or your stress. So instead, I started tracking what actually mattered: waist measurements, gym strength, muscle shape, progress photos, DEXA scans, and feedback from people around me. All this is what gives you the full picture. And what matters is how your body looks and feels and performs. Once I got to that 11 to 13% range, I stopped worrying about the scale and it all just got easier. But that only works if you're eating with a structure, because when you're this lean, you have to get this next thing dialed in. So once I dipped below 10% body fat, I couldn't wing it anymore. Hunger hit hard, cravings were constant, and any slip-ups were seen pretty much the next day or day after. This whole idea of just, I'll eat clean and listen to my body, is a complete delusion. Because when you're that lean, your body is poking you all day to break your diet and go eat something. I remember during this crazy street competition prep, I was so starved that a colleague was outside smoking near me, which I hate cigarettes. But even the smell of the cigarette was good. And smelling any food just instantly made me hungrier. And that's how dialed in and deprived I was. But after the comp, I reversed back out of it. I pre-tracked my meals again. I built in this flexibility with a calorie budget, and I kept it structured, but also added in variety. And that's what made it enjoyable and sustainable without, rebounding back to all the body fat I used to have. I realized that if I wanted to stay lean, I had to feel good doing it and make it a routine, a part of my lifestyle. The truth is, at lower body fat levels, the margin for error is going to be really tight. And without a predictable routine, it's way too easy to just slide backwards and lose those habits. Some guys are just too loose and they're going to regain a lot of fat, whereas others are just too strict and they suffer unnecessarily. What worked for me was learning to just budget what I was eating, track my calories, my protein, my carbs, my fats as accurately as possible. No guessing, no eyeballing. So if you don't have a food scale, get one. Seriously, like this small habit leveled up my nutrition pretty much more than anything else that I did back then. However, constant cravings weren't the only weird thing that came with getting this lean. In getting below 10%, tough sets in the gym felt much harder. And the third or fourth set, I would often hit less reps than I normally would when I was fatter. I also felt colder than usual just from having so little body fat and generally tired. I would crash in the afternoons, though to be fair, I was working a lot and under a lot of stress and anxiety, so that's another factor. So yeah, getting down to 10% or below pretty well sucks. The best part was actually reversing out of this. And once I hit that point of knowing, what too lean actually feels like, everything changed because then I actually knew what it was like. I added more food. I recovered better. I felt better, felt more full, gained strength and more muscle faster than I ever have in that reverse phase. And I kept lean without feeling like I was grinding every single day. By the time I stabilized at, I think it was about 11%, my mood, my focus, and my energy all came back, and I was stronger than I was before because I was refueling my body. So another thing I didn't expect was that I enjoyed clean food way more than I ever did, more than sweet, processed, fatty junk food. Although they were still nice to have, they just weren't as exciting to eat anymore because I'd adapted to eating clean food all the time. And so after my last bodybuilding competition, which was in 2016, a bunch of us competitors, we were all backstage eating chocolate and chips because we just starved ourselves for 6 months. And we were all talking, and what we really wanted was a bowl of oats or a bowl of pasta or potato and rice. But anyway, on that note, being ripped won't guarantee that you're going to be happy, and here's why. So one of the nicest parts of getting lean is that you're going to be seeing muscles you probably didn't even know that you had. It's not just abs. You're going to be seeing your obliques, your serratus, quad cuts in your legs, or your brachialis between the bicep and tricep. And it's interesting how much detail shows up once the fat finally peels off like an onion. However, even at 11% body fat, I would still catch myself grabbing my lower belly, stuck in this illusion of, there's just a little bit more to lose. That mindset doesn't go away. So once you've adapted, it's like when you buy a new car. After 3 weeks, that new car feels completely normal. Except in this case, maintaining a lean body means not going back to that old shitbox that you learned to drive on. The visual payoff is huge, but don't expect perfection from yourself all the time. Even when you're lean, your brain still zooms in on that little bit of fat that nobody else is even going to notice. Everyone will think that you look like some human anatomy chart, but all you're going to see is the little bottom abs that look a little bit smooth or puffy because you had 2 beers the other night. Though, when you get leaner, don't be shocked if people start injecting doubt into you with this next myth. So in growing up, I always heard the same thing. You need to bulk up to gain muscle. And people wonder why they never get leaner. However, that's not what I experienced. Even around 10% body fat, I was still hitting PBs in the gym. And I got stronger, which led to even more muscle gain. And a long time ago, I remember struggling 80 kilos on the bench press without a spotter. But even when I was getting more ripped than ever before, I built up to pressing 100 kilos without a spotter. And it really wasn't until I pushed below that 8% body fat that my strength really started to dip, and I lost probably 10 to 20% on all my lifts. But once I reversed back up to that 11 to 13% range, it all came back very quickly. More food, more carbs, pretty much fueled all that. And it also made my muscles look more fuller and tighter. Though there is a limit, it's not easier to build muscle while you're getting lean, but for guys who aren't maxed out naturally, it's absolutely possible. You don't need to blow up your body fat just to grow more muscle, and you can let go of that old school gimmick. But your program has to work every single week. No going backwards, no wasting time doing the same old stuff and getting nowhere. Ultimately, it's going to be down to progressive overload to really unlock the gains that you don't have today, which means tracking every single thing that you're doing in the gym so you can't lie to yourself ever. That way, you're never going to get sucked into this next overhyped muscle building gimmick. So I used to walk around the supplement shops trying to read every single label on the bottles or the packets or whatever and figure out which one was better compared to the next. But ultimately, I'll just buy whatever the salesman hyped up the most because I was too gullible. It was a huge waste of time and a massive waste of money, thousands of dollars. I've taken fat burners, pre-workouts, BCAAs, and even tried these sketchy fat-burning topical creams that you would like rub on your abs and belly. But none of that worked. It was all bullshit, except for creatine. But even then, even with creatine, I only felt the impact of it when I was like deep into a hard set and pushing right up close to failure, and I could squeeze out maybe an extra 1 or 2 reps, and it would help me hit these PBs when I was really pushing. But that's probably about it, other than the weight gain or the water retention. But the period that I built the most amount of muscle and strength was when I wasn't taking any supplements other than protein powder. Not that that's magical, but I was taking the protein powder just to help hit my protein targets because I didn't want to eat 4 meals a day. Protein powder cannot beat real food. So if you're spending more on supplements than food, you've got it backwards. You don't need supplements to get ripped. You can do it just with quality food. And look, if you want to take supplements, be my guest, it's up to you. Waste your own money. But don't expect them to do the work that you're not going to do for yourself. And that reminds me of another myth that kept me plateaued in the gym for way too long that nobody needs to do. I remember this one workout in the gym, and I thought at this point in time that I was really strong. So I went up and asked this guy to spot me. He clearly didn't want to. I could just tell by the look of his face. And he was like, all right, let's do it now then. So I picked up the 24 kilo dumbbells, which he basically had to lift for me by supporting my elbows. And then as I was lowering the weights slow as I could, down to about just here, my ear level, it looked like I was being electrocuted because I was just shaking so badly and I'm breathing so hard. And then at this point, after a couple of reps, this guy was like,
put him down, mate, you're wasting your time. Go and grab the lighter weights and do it properly. I'm not going to spot you if you can't even lift the weight yourself, mate.
And he really crushed my ego. But he was right. I took his advice to heart, and then 6 months later, I was lifting that exact same weight on my own without any spot, full range of motion, all the way down, touching the shoulders and back up. So the problem that I'm talking about here was that I was relying on spotters for my whole life. I couldn't control the weight. I couldn't even get into position. And if nobody was around, I would often skip that exercise, or maybe I wouldn't even train because I was too scared to hurt myself. So this just capped my progress. But once I stopped using spotters, I had to train smarter. My programming became more detailed because I was always progressing with what I could do myself, not relying on others. Sure, that meant that it was a little bit slower, but it was real progress that I could rely on. And then everything became consistent because I didn't need anybody's help. Even for bench or squats, I just used the safety bars, and I would stop short of failure, like 1 or 2 reps, and I was totally fine. There was no issues with that. And this is when the real gains started showing up because of that consistency. But there were still a couple of hard lessons I had to learn once I got this whole routine perfected. So I used to think that getting shredded would turn me into some next level superior human being. But the reality is, I'm just a normal guy who figured out how to stay lean and who made it part of my lifestyle and my identity, all fueled by habits and routines. The younger, weak, skinny, fat, self-conscious, lazy me never thought it was going to be possible to get six-pack lean and reasonably strong for my height and weight. To my surprise, hitting that 11% body fat didn't magically fix my life, but it did prove that I was capable of doing more. It helped me to set bigger goals and actually go after them and not be fearful. And it taught me what discipline really meant and how to stop letting all these other people's opinions and self-doubt hold me back. Because the fact is, nobody else really cares or gives a shit. So you have to do it for you. Saying that you're going to do it for your kids, for your wife, for your health, for longevity, that'll get you started because you're in a place of pain and we want to get out of pain. But when it gets hard, when it absolutely fucking sucks, when shit hits the fan in business and in life, the only person who's going to pick you up and keep you moving is you. This is really the best part. This is what builds the resilience. This is what builds the discipline and the self-control, all the good stuff nobody can give to you and that nobody can take away from you. This is why I believe strongly that every man should find out what does too lean actually look like and what does it feel like, because then once you get there, you can choose, okay, what is my happy, healthy level? Is it 10%? Is it 11? Is it 12? Is it 13? For me, it's anywhere between 11 to 13. If I get sick, if I travel, if I miss a week of training, whatever, I might float up to 14%. But then I quickly snap back when I get back into my routine. So if you want to get under 15% body fat in a smart, sustainable way without starving yourself, without obsessing or spending way too many hours in the gym every single day or whatever, check out the Business Body Blueprint routine. It's the exact system that I use myself to get all the way to 6% body fat and reverse up to 11. It's what all my clients follow to get and stay lean year round, no matter how hectic or busy their life is. So the link is right below this video. Tap it to check it out there. And if you are stuck over 20% body fat, go and watch this video next. It's exactly what I would do today to break through and hit 15% body fat. Thanks for watching.